They say Caleb never came back from the field trip, but that's not entirely true. Something that no one saw him leave the museum, but he was still marked present. His phone still sent a message at 3 a.m. There was still a figure in the mirror, wearing his hoodie but never blinking. After that day, things began to change. A new student no one remembered enrolling. A wax doll no one brought, but it moved closer every day. A hallway that never ended. A recording from no sender. A ticket unused, but still demanding to be claimed. If you think these are coincidences, you've missed the point. It wasn't Caleb who got left behind. It was the world that left a door open. And when you don't return what you brought out, you become the thing that stays. Part 1. The living exhibit. Caleb's shoelaces were still tied neatly on the bench where we left him, but Caleb wasn't there. You know how field trips are supposed to be the highlight of middle school? That one day when the bus smells like a mix of hand sanitizer and cheese puffs, and everyone's just a little too loud. That's how our Friday started. Our destination, the Lincoln County Museum of History. Not exactly Disneyland, but it had dinosaurs, war stuff, and something new, an Egyptian funeral exhibit. Walk like an Egyptian, one kid joked, and someone started humming the song. It felt silly, normal. There were 26 of us, not including Mr. Fairbanks, our social studies teacher with the dad jokes and coffee breath. We filed in through the side doors like a row of ducklings, past a waxy T-Rex that looked more tired than terrifying, and into the cool stone halls of the past. Nothing felt wrong yet. The ancient Egypt exhibit was tucked into the back. Dim lighting, heavy silence. The air was different, there like it hadn't been disturbed in years. Even the linoleum floor muffled our sneakers. There were artifacts in glass cases, canopic jars shaped like animals, dusty scrolls behind you, their protective shields, and the centerpiece a recreation of a burial chamber. Stone walls painted with faded hieroglyphs, a sarcophagus in the center, and an eerie recording of desert wind looping every 2 minutes. Caleb was the first to lean in too close. "Check this out," he whispered to me. He always whispered when he was excited, like secrets. Made things more real. He pointed to a symbol on the painted wall and I, surrounded by jagged lines. "I think it's watching us," he smirked. I rolled my eyes, but snapped a picture. Behind him, the exhibit guide, a college kid in a museum vest, warned us not to touch anything. Caleb mimed zipping his lips. We moved on. At 10:52 a.m., Mr. Fairbanks called for a water break. We gathered in the lobby near the vending machines. That's when someone asked, "Where's Caleb?" Liam said, "He was just next to me." No, he was with me by the clay masks. We fanned out, checked the bathroom, gift shop, even the lobby again. But Caleb wasn't anywhere. Security was called. The museum was searched. Doors were locked. The field trip paused for what felt like hours. But the weirdest part, the roll call. Mr. Fairbanks counted us 3 times. Each time, 27 names, including Caleb's. We joked at first. Maybe he was hiding. Maybe he got locked in the janitor's closet. But then someone checked the photo I took off the wall. The eye, the sarcophagus. Caleb wasn't in it, but I saw him there. I talked to him. He pointed at that wall. And I had the picture to prove it, except now. It was just the wall, empty. No figure, no shadow. Just the eye. It made my stomach twist. Museum staff assured us Caleb had never left the building, but also that he hadn't been seen on the cameras entering the Egypt room. Only one camera faced that hallway, and it showed us going in with 27 people, coming out still 27, but frame by frame. No, Caleb. That's when I started to notice the shoelaces. They were black with little green skulls, tied in Caleb's weird double-loop style, sitting neatly on the bench outside the exhibit, like they had been placed there, not kicked off, not tripped over, placed. Mr. Fairbanks didn't say much on the ride back. None of us did. Even the noisy kids who always sang TikTok songs went silent. I think we all thought the same thing but didn't want to say it. Caleb didn't get lost. He got replaced up because that night at 11:46 p.m. I got a text from his number. "Hey man, I'm home. Weird day, lol. See you Monday." But when I tapped the message, it disappeared, and Caleb's contact vanished from my phone. I asked the group chat. Everyone said the same thing. No message, no number. But we all felt something. Like we weren't alone. Like something followed us home. That weekend, I dreamed of that eye on the wall. Except it wasn't painted anymore. It was blinking dot watching me. By Monday, the school made a statement. Caleb was dealing with personal issues. His desk was still there, backpack untouched, lunch account active, but no one had heard from his family. A substitute sat in his seat during attendance, no joke. She just smiled, didn't speak, wore the same color hoodie Caleb always wore. No one asked why. We didn't want to know. I walked by the museum again last night. The Egypt exhibit lights were off, but in the reflection of the glass, just for a second, I saw someone inside. It looked like Caleb, but he was facing the wall, and the wall was blinking back. Part 2. The message from the missing id started with a buzz at 3:07 a.m., a low, dragging buzz that lit up Jordan's cracked phone screen on his nightstand. Caleb, the name, stared at him, even though the number had been inactive for 2 days. No calls, no texts, no trace. Jordan had checked. Everyone had. But there it was, and beneath it, a message. "I'm here, ... but not me." Jordan sat up, pulse thudding. He swiped the notification. The message vanished. Not archived, not deleted, vanished. As if the phone had never buzzed. But he saw it. He knew what he saw. And suddenly, the silence of the house felt louder. The shadows too thick. He didn't sleep the rest of the night. The next morning, he cornered Natalie at her locker. "Did you ever get weird messages from Caleb before?" he asked, keeping his voice low. She blinked, surprised. "No. Why?" Jordan hesitated. Then he told her. Her eyes shifted. "That's not possible. His number's been deactivated. I tried calling it yesterday. It just ... rings once, then nothing." Before Jordan could reply, the morning announcements cut in overhead. A low crackle, then the usual voice, too cheery for a grey Tuesday. But Jordan wasn't listening. Something else caught his eye in the glass of Natalie's locker mirror. For just a second, he saw another figure behind them. Not a reflection of someone nearby, not a teacher, not a student, just tall, draped, watching. He spun around. Nothing. Natalie looked too. "What?" He forced a chuckle. "Thought I saw ... someone. Never mind." That day felt off. The fluorescent lights flickered more than usual. The air vents whispered like distant voices. A history teacher stopped, mid-lecture, stared at the wall for 5 full minutes, then resumed as if nothing happened. But the weirdest part was Caleb's desk. Still there, still marked. Present on the attendance sheet, still with his jacket hung. On the chair that wasn't there yesterday. Jordan whispered to Natalie during English. She nodded slowly. Or the day before. After school, Jordan checked the class group chat. Nobody else seemed to notice anything. No one even mentioned Caleb's absence. As if the museum trip never ended. As if nothing had changed. That night, Jordan didn't mean to fall asleep. He just ... drifted. And that's when the whispering started. A voice, soft, raspy, like dry leaves being stirred. He never left. Jordan sat upright in bed, drenched in sweat. His phone screen was still lit. It had opened the chat with Caleb. Empty, no new messages. He stepped into the hallway. The house was still, too still. Even the fridge wasn't humming. Then he saw it. A shape in the bathroom mirror at the end of the hallway, standing behind him. But when he turned, nothing. The next day, 3 more classmates reported their mirrors cracking overnight. Just a thin fracture, right down the center, like something trying to crawl through. No one talked about it aloud, but the group chat buzzed. Natalie, guys, weird stuff, shadows in mirrors, cold spots, tie, dude. I swear I saw Caleb at the gas station. He looked at me, didn't blink. Then he was gone. Dylan. This isn't funny. Stop. Jordan. It's not a joke. Something came back with us. Silence after that. On Thursday, Natalie and Jordan returned to the museum just to look. Just to see if something would click. But the ancient Egypt exhibit was closed. A handwritten sign on the rope barrier, temporarily removed for renovation. But behind the rope, the display was still there. Dimly lit, quiet, dusty. The mummy case stood. Open. Empty. Did it ever strike you, Natalie whispered, that maybe something came out, not someone went in? Jordan didn't answer. Because the silence felt too heavy. Because something in the shadows behind the display twitched. Because the air suddenly smelled like old linen and copper. And in the glass wall of the exhibit case, Jordan saw Caleb staring, but his eyes weren't blinking, and his reflection didn't move when Jordan did. He grabbed Natalie's hand. Let's go now. As they turned, the lights dimmed further, and from the speakers overhead, something crackled. Just a breath, then a voice. I'm here. But not me. They didn't talk the entire ride home. That night, Jordan unplugged every mirror in his house, taped paper over the bathroom one, slept with the lights on, but sleep didn't help, because dreams have reflections too, and in them, Caleb stood at the museum door, his mouth open wide, whispers flowing out like dust. You brought me back, ... And just before Jordan woke up, Caleb reached through the glass, smiling, but it wasn't Caleb. Part 3, the guard who wasn't on Starfy, swear the basement door wasn't there before. That's what Liam kept saying, not in a panicked wage, quiet, confused, like he couldn't convince even himself. The morning after Caleb's creepy message disappeared from Ali's phone, we were all jumpy. Teachers noticed, sure, but chalked it up to middle school drama and too much caffeine. But something felt wrong. It lingered. You know that eerie sensation when you walk into a room and forget why you went in, and suddenly everything feels off, like the air's thicker. That was school now. It started small. Liam said he forgot his sketch pad in the auditorium after choir practice. But instead of heading up to the stage like normal, he wandered into the wrong hallway and saw a stairwell. Behind a door labeled Maintenance Access B. The thing is, no one had ever seen that door before. Not even Mr. Reynolds, the janitor who knew every pipe and tile in the building. And that door, It led to the old museum basement. The museum had once been a wing of our school decades ago before. The school expanded and sealed it off. Or so he thought. Liam swore he walked down the dusty stairs. The air grew cold fast, even though it was late spring. At the bottom, instead of broken shelves and forgotten janitorial supplies like you'd expect, he found a long hallway lit by flickering yellow bulbs. And at the end of that hallway stood an elderly man in a security guard uniform, pale blue, dusty patches. His name tag had a crack running through it, so all Liam could read was Walt. The man didn't yell at him, didn't ask why Liam was there. He just looked up from a folding chair and said one thing: "You brought it out." Liam asked what that meant, but Walt simply tilted his head and smiled. He backed away, his phone shaking in his hand, and when he looked back up, Walt was gone. The hallway was empty, silent, cold. When Liam ran back up the stairs and burst into the front office, no one believed him. They said there was no such door, no such basement access. Even Mr. Reynolds swore that part of the building had been bricked over 20 years ago, but Liam had taken a photo. The image was blurry, dimly lit, but you could clearly make out part of the hallway. A smudge of blue uniform, and the words etched faintly on the wall behind the chair. He wasn't supposed to return by lunch. The photo was gone, deleted, not even in his cloud storage. That was the same day we noticed the new kid. He showed up. In third period math, pale, quiet, short-cropped black hair, and the kind of stare that doesn't blink enough. The teacher introduced him as Cade. No last name. No one remembered him from the roll sheets. No one saw him on the field trip. And when Emma asked the office if he'd transferred in, the secretary looked confused and said, "There've been no new enrollments since February." Cade sat at the far edge of the room, always facing the window, even when the teacher was talking. During group projects, he wouldn't speak unless you asked him something directly. And even then, it was always short, too short. Like he didn't really know how to use words right. Someone said his eyes changed color in different lighting. Hazel, then gray, then green. Ali swore he hummed ancient music low, breathy tunes that sounded like wind through stone. When she mentioned it, Cade looked directly at her and whispered, "Some voices don't leave, they echo." No one laughed, no one teased him. There was something about the way he said it, like it wasn't a metaphor, like it was a memory. The weirdest part, he sat in Caleb's seat. When we asked about that, the teacher blinked, confused. "That seat's always been Cade's," she said. But we remembered Caleb doodling weird hieroglyphs in the margins of his notebook. We remembered his nervous laugh when he knocked over a replica urn at the museum. We remembered him standing by the glass case in the Egypt exhibit, his reflection looking wrong, like it moved. Half a second too late. We remembered, but no one else seemed to. Later that week, Liam returned to the basement stairs with Ali and me. The door was gone, just painted wall, but I swear, when we leaned in close to look for any seam or crack, we heard something behind it, shuffling like a heavy cloth dragging across tile, or bandaged feet. When we backed away, Ali whispered the thing we were all thinking. He wasn't supposed to return, but something did. And that's when we realized something terrifying. Maybe Caleb didn't vanish. Maybe he traded places, and whatever took his place is already in our classroom, smiling, blinking, too slowly, waiting. Part 4, the unpacked item. It started with a question no one wanted to ask out loud. Who packed the doll? It was Monday morning when Nora unzipped her backpack and found it sitting neatly on top of her books. A wax doll, pale and perfectly still, with arms slightly extended as if might embrace. Its eyes dark pinpricks and a smooth face seemed to follow the classroom's light, glassy and watchful. "Is this ... yours?" Nora asked, holding it out by 2 fingers like it might bite. Everyone shook their heads. "Creepy," someone muttered. Ms. Devins, their homeroom teacher, frowned and took the doll carefully, placing it on the side table near the pencil sharpener. She said she'd take it to the office later, but she didn't. The doll stayed there all day, untouched, and no one wanted to admit it, but by 6th period, it had moved. Not far, just a few inches closer to the edge of the table. Its little wax feet now hung just over the rim. By Tuesday, it was sitting on the teacher's desk. "Someone's playing a joke," Ms. Devins said, not sounding convinced. "Just ... don't touch it." Nora could swear the thing had smiled overnight, like its lips had creased ever so slightly. It was still the same waxy shade, the same glass eyes, but something in its posture more upright, more ... curious. That afternoon, Tyler reached out and poked it. He flinched immediately. "It's warm," he said. "Like body temp warm." No one else touched it after that. But the next day, Tyler didn't show up to school. Rumor said he had some kind of rash, a circular mark on his arm that looked like a spiral, deep, almost burrowing by Thursday. The doll was in the front row. Nora noticed it first. It was seated, cross-legged, like a student. Its head tilted slightly, as if listening. No one had moved. ITM's Devins didn't even acknowledge it anymore. It was as if it had always been part of the class. "What's that on your neck?" Logan asked Nora during lunch. She touched the spot and felt it. A raised bump, round with an indentation swirling inward, like something had twisted into her skin. "You touched it?" "No. I swear I didn't." She hadn't. Not physically, but it had been in her backpack, pressed against her books. Her skin had felt clammy ever since. That night, Nora dreamed of narrow hallways lined with wax figures. Each one stared as she passed. None moved, but she could hear breathing. Friday morning, no one sat in the front row. Even the substitute, Mr. Anders, avoided the desk near the doll. "Ms. Devins is out sick," he said, his voice tight. The doll was now facing backward, turned to watch the rest of the room. At exactly 10:07 a.m., the fire alarm went off. Not a drill, the screeching tore through their eardrums, and students flooded into the hallway. But Nora didn't move. She was watching the doll. It had turned its head, just the head, and then it smiled again, wider this time. The spiral on her neck burned hot. She backed away slowly, her breath caught halfway up her throat. "Come on." Logan grabbed her arm and dragged her out, but even in the chaos of the crowd, she swore she saw something in the classroom window, the wax figure walking, stiff-legged, toward the door. When they returned, the doll was gone. But that night, Nora got a text. No number, no contact, just one line. "You brought it out." And below that, a spiral drawn in symbols she didn't recognize. The mark on her neck pulsed, and in the reflection of her phone screen, something moved behind her. She spun around, nothing. Her room was quiet. Still, but her backpack was unzipped. She reached for it slowly. Her fingers trembled as she peeled it open. Inside, lying atop her textbooks again, was the doll. It had changed. The face now had deep lines, pores, even a faint resemblance to her. The spiral on her neck darkened, twisting deeper. Her breath came in short, clipped bursts, as if her lungs forgot how to work. She grabbed the doll and threw it across the room. It landed face down. She stared, waiting, and then it started to twitch, just slightly, like it was breathing. She didn't sleep that night, but in the early hours, as light crept through her blinds, she checked again. The doll was gone, and on her ceiling, just above her bed, a spiral had been drawn in red wax. Still fresh, she didn't scream. She just whispered to herself, over and over, "Don't look at it, don't look at it, don't let it know, you see." But it already knew, it always had. Part 5. The class without a teacher, no one's coming, are they? Jamie whispered. Her voice sounded too loud, too sharp in the stale stillness of room 205. The clock on the wall read 8:19 a.m., same as it had for the last 10 minutes. Or was it 20? No one could tell. Phones weren't working. Wi-Fi was gone. Even their watches, those who wore them, refused to tick. It felt like time had sunk into the floor, pooling somewhere out of reach. It had started like any other day, first bell. Students shuffling in with half-eaten Pop-Tarts and earbuds still plugged in. Mrs. Lenton, their English teacher, was never exactly punctual, so no one noticed she was late, until it wasn't just late. It was ... nothing, 10 minutes passed, then 20. Then the air in room 205 began to feel thick, like walking underwater. Conversations fizzled out, replaced by an eerie hush. Even the fluorescent lights overhead flickered once and dimmed, like the room had sighed and given up. "We should leave," said Taylor, who never followed rules unless it was to break them. Creatively taught, he tried the door locked. Deadbolt. No one had heard it click. That's when the silence got louder. Not just quiet, but hollow, like the air had forgotten how to carry sound. A pen dropped onto the tile floor. No clack, just motion, like watching a movie on mute. "Is this a prank?" someone mouthed. The words didn't come out. They couldn't. Lips moved, but there was no sound. Panic replaced boredom. Students began to gesture wildly, trying to make sense of it all. But nothing worked. Every attempt at communication collapsed into a vacuum of dead air. Then, the shadows began to misbehave. They stretched wrong, bent in curves instead of angles. Some didn't match the students they supposedly belonged to. At one point, Jamie looked behind her and saw her shadow raise its hand. Before she did, that's when Oliver noticed him. "There's an extra desk," he said, voice suddenly restored. Everyone turned. The silence snapped like a string under tension. Sound flooded. Back, you could hear every breath, every sneaker squeak, every heartbeat, and there it was, an extra desk. Far back in the corner, half hid by a supply cabinet. Old, wooden, the kind the school hadn't used in decades. Someone was sitting there. A kid. No one knew his name. No one remembered seeing him walk in. But there he sat, pale skin, eyes too wide, still as glass. His fingers were stained with something dark, something that looked like melted wax or dried ink. No one spoke to him. No one moved toward him. Then the classroom door opened. The hallway outside looked normal, bright, no flickering lights, no time glitches. Just a regular Thursday morning, except ... It was 11:02 a.m., 3 hours had passed. But inside room 205, the clock still read 8:19. When they stepped out, phones began working again. Sounds returned to their natural volume. Everything felt lighter, sharper, Everyone talked at once. Everyone tried to explain what they experienced. But then someone noticed something else. Jared, one of the seniors in the class, he didn't remember anything. Nothing at all. I sat down. And then we left, he said, blinking, confused. What do you mean, it's 11? We just got here. He wasn't joking. He wasn't playing dumb. He genuinely didn't recall the frozen clock, the missing teacher, or the pale kid in the back corner. When they looked back into the room, the desk was gone. No signs of an extra student. No old wood. No fingerprints. But the clock still read 8:19. Later that day, Jamie checked the attendance records out of curiosity, mostly to prove to herself that she hadn't imagined him. But something was off. Room 205 wasn't listed as used. That period, no English class scheduled, no teacher assigned, and the name Jared Montgomery didn't appear in the student directory at all. But Jamie sat next to him every single day. She had notes from him in her notebook. Inside jokes, doodles, proof he was real. Right. That night, she got a text. Blocked number, no ID. Just 5 words. Don't. Go back to 205, and one photo, the wooden desk, on her bedroom. Part 6. The hall that never ends. Don't take the second right by the science wing. That's the kind of weird thing kids say when they want to creep each other out. A joke, an urban legend passed between classes, like Bloody Mary or the old boiler room ghost. So when Brandon laughed and took that exact turn to go to the restroom, none of us thought twice. That was last Monday. He never came back. At first, it didn't seem like a big deal. Maybe he was skipping. Maybe he bailed and was hiding out in the gym. But when the bell rang and he didn't show up in 4th period or lunch, we started texting. No reply, no location updates, nothing by 7th period. His mum was calling the school. We assumed it was a prank or a runaway situation, but the next day, they pulled us all into the auditorium and told us that Brandon was officially missing. No trace. He'd left his books, his phone, his hoodie all in his desk. Teachers tried to stay calm, but there was tension underneath their words. Unease. Then came the security footage. Ms. Tellman, our guidance counselor, showed us just a clip, probably to stop rumors. But it did the opposite. It showed Brandon walking down the second right hallway, the one by the science wing. That hallway has 4 doors on each side, leading to old storage rooms. The camera caught him turning the corner at 10:17 a.m. and then walking and walking. They sped up. The footage, 2X, 4X, 8X. He never stopped, never looked side to side. Just this steady, rhythmic pace. No change in stride. No door opened. He never passed the camera again. Like the hallway had looped or stretched somehow, like it swallowed him. Someone said it must be doctored. Maybe he escaped off camera. But the real horror wasn't the footage, it was what came next. A week later, locker 219 opened. That's Caleb's old locker, the one next to mine. Caleb was the student who went missing 3 years ago after the museum trip. His locker had been sealed since then. No one was assigned to it. It didn't even have a functioning lock anymore. But that morning, it hung open just a crack. I noticed it when I was grabbing my history textbook. I nudged it wider. Inside were a pair of shoes. Not just any shoes. Brandon's Vans, torn laces. The custom red marker line on the heel he doodled last semester. The soles were dirty, the way They looked the day he disappeared, and they were warm. I know how that sounds, but I swear I touched them. They were still warm. I didn't say anything at first. Who would believe me? I thought maybe someone was messing with me, until Emma pulled me aside the next day and said something strange. Did he ever mention the whispering to you? I blinked. Brandon, she nodded. The week before he vanished, he told me he kept hearing someone call his name between periods, like faint, like through a vent. He thought it was a prank, said it always happened when he was alone in the hall. That matched something I'd experienced, only I hadn't connected the dots. I'd heard my own name once while walking near the science wing late on a Tuesday. I thought it was just my mind playing tricks, a weird echo, but now I wasn't. So sure, by Friday, the atmosphere at school changed. Students avoided the second right. Teachers wouldn't mention Brandon by name. And someone wrote in chalk across the whiteboard in room 113, "The hall never ends." We never found out who did it. It was wiped before first period, but the janitor, Mr. Felder, was seen scrubbing the board for over 20 minutes. And rumor was, it wouldn't come off easily, like it had been burned in. Later that afternoon, I saw something I still can't explain. I was heading to the main office to drop off a permission slip. Had to pass by the science wing. I kept my eyes forward, tried not to think about Brandon, but out of the corner of my eye just for a second, I saw movement. Someone was walking that hall. Same steady pace, same outline, same shoes. I stopped, turned, but when I looked fully, no one was there. The next Monday, another note appeared. This time in a girl's locker. Her name was Lily. The note read, "You shouldn't have watched." She transferred schools that same week. Didn't even tell her friends goodbye. Now there's a list, unofficial, but whispered between students. A list of those who've heard the voice, seen the movement, touched the shoes. It's not long, but it's growing. And me, I dream of that hallway now. Endless doors, endless silence. And just ahead, Brandon's back, always walking, always, just out of reach. They say if you try to follow him, the hallway resets. But I'm starting to wonder what happens if you stop and wait. Part 7, Eyes in the Mirror. I swear, the mirror blinked at me. That's what Kayla whispered to me when we left the nurse's office. And the way she said it, low and trembling, like she was afraid of the words escaping her mouth, made me believe her more than I wanted to. It all started last Tuesday, just after lunch. Kayla had a headache, one of those bad ones that seemed to tunnel into her skull behind her eyes. She'd gone to lie down in the nurse's office and came back 15 minutes later looking like she'd seen a ghost. Pale lips, wide eyes, barely speaking. The rest of us thought maybe she just needed food or rest. But then the stories started. The nurse's office had always felt a little off, tucked away at the far end of the east hallway, right next to the old art supply closet. Nobody used anymore. It was too quiet, too dim. The kind of place you walked past faster than you meant to. Inside, there was only one bed, an old metal cabinet with cotton balls and expired cough syrup, and a tall mirror by the sink. That mirror had been there for decades, long, oval-shaped, bolted into the wall. It had a slight warp in the glass, like it stretched everything a little too long. Made your reflection seem just barely wrong, but until last Tuesday, it was just a mirror. Wednesday morning, Kayla went back to the nurse with another headache. I offered to walk with her. The nurse was out getting coffee, so she told me to wait while she lay down. As I stood by the sink, I caught my reflection. Nothing unusual, just me, but behind me, something shifted. I turned around fast. Empty room. I looked back at the mirror. There, faint and distant, like through a fogged-up window, was a dimly lit chamber. Stone walls, columns, statues lined up, unmoving. At first I thought it was some kind of trick, maybe a reflection of a picture behind me. But there was nothing. On the wall, just white paint and a dusty clock. Then one of the statues in the reflection tilted its head. My heart slammed into my chest. I didn't move. I didn't blink. I just watched. The figure, grey, waxy, faceless, didn't move again. I blinked, and the room was gone. Just me, just the bed, just the cabinet. Kayla sat up behind me and whispered, "You saw it too, didn't you?" I nodded. Bye. Thursday, word had spread. Some students started calling it the mirror that watches back. Others said it showed where Caleb had gone. You remember Caleb, right? Of course you do. Our classmate. The one who never came back from the museum. That night, I couldn't sleep. I dreamed of the mirror, of walking into it, like through water. My hands didn't reflect, they dissolved, becoming stone. And the figures inside the forbidden room watched me like they were waiting. The next day, the nurse found fingerprints on the glass, smudged, too large, too wide, pressed from the inside. She tried to wipe them. They didn't come off. Friday, I went back. Alone, I told myself I needed to see it again. The room was there, clearer than before. Dust floated in the air like glitter. The statues had moved. They were closer to the mirror. 3 rows of them now, and one of them, one in the middle, was no longer standing still. It was leaning forward. Its hand touched the glass. Fingers spread. Flat against it. I didn't breathe. The glass ... creaked, not cracked, creaked like wood under pressure. I ran, but something strange happened on the way out. The hallway looked normal. The sun still poured through the high windows. But every mirror I passed, every reflection, I didn't see myself. I saw the statues, closer, always closer. Monday morning, we came to school and found the nurse's office locked, taped off with yellow caution tape. No explanation, but when I pressed my ear to the door, I swear I heard breathing. Not mine, not the nurse's. Breathing like wind through hollow stone. They say reflections can trap parts of your soul. That's why some people cover mirrors after someone dies. I don't know if that's true, but I do know this. There are more figures now. I can feel them watching. And one day soon, one of us is going to blink and not be looking out anymore. We'll be looking in. Part 8. The unclaimed recording. It started with an email that shouldn't have existed. No subject line, no sender, just a blank name and a timestamp. 3:17 a.m. Attached, a single audio file named trip_audio.mp3.mp3.mb3.ms. Gallows, the vice principal, found it sitting in the school inbox. She played it, thinking it might be another parent complaint or maybe a recording from the museum field trip a week ago. But what played through her speakers made her go still. The file began with the sound of bus wheels on asphalt, laughter, students chattering, someone unwrapping candy, then a muffled voice, Caleb's. This place gives me the creeps. Feels like the air's listening. Ms. Gallows sat back. Caleb had been the only one who didn't return from the trip. Technically, he had, but something had been different. His eyes didn't seem to track right. He stopped answering to his name. And last Friday, he didn't show up at all. She continued listening. In the recording, the students entered the museum. The usual guide's voice welcomed them, echoing faintly in the marble halls. The group moved through exhibits, Roman artifacts, Mesopotamian tablets, preserved bones. Then came the moment Ms. Gallows hadn't heard about it. Door creaks, footsteps. Then a sharp whisper. This part isn't on the tour. The group falls quiet. On the tape, someone giggles nervously. Caleb again. Dude, this room's not even lit. Swear that statue just moved. Then, a strange sound. Low, a breath, a growl. It reverberated in a way that didn't belong on any normal audio. The guide's voice broke in. Students, please return to the main exhibit. This section is restricted, but the group didn't leave. The footsteps continued. Whispers overlapped. Then the voice came. It was not English. A deep, ancient-sounding voice whispered something low and slow, dragging syllables across the speakers like cold fingers across skin. Ms. Gallows replayed that section. She didn't understand the language, but something about it stirred a visceral fear. She called Mr. Leland from the history department. He arrived with his half-drunk coffee and raised eyebrows. Another angry mum. Just listen. She hit play again. When the whispering came, Mr. Leland paled. That's Middle Egyptian. It's barely spoken. Not even Coptic. Ancient, even for that era. Ms. Gallows looked at him. What does it say? He listened again, frowning, then slowly translated. No one leaves, unless something ... is returned. They sat in silence. The file continued. At the very end of the recording, just before it cut out, a final voice spoke clearer than the rest. Male, young, confident, Caleb. But he wasn't speaking English. He was replying in Egyptian. Mr. Leland's hand began to shake. He said, "The debt is not mine. I was chosen. It walks in my name." And then silence. The file ended with a faint scratching sound, like fingernails across stone. They ran a trace. It said the email didn't come from any known server, the digital footprint, blank, the audio file, corrupted after one play. Even when they tried to download it again, it was gone. But a week later, Ms. Gallows found something new. On her desk was a CD, burned onto it, the same file, no label, just a sticky note. He is still replying. That Monday, a few students claimed their phones glitched during class, only during second period, and only when they passed the nurse's office. Each phone recorded a strange file on its own. No app involved, no cloud sync, just a single new file in there. audiofolders.trip_audio.mp3. Some refused to play it. One girl did. She dropped the phone. There were more voices, she said, her hands trembling. More than before, and one of them said my name. The next day, her locker was open. Inside, a cracked CD. No one saw who put it there. The scratch across the disc matched a pattern that looked ancient, not scratched by fingernails, scratched by a chisel. Nobody knew where Caleb had gone, but whatever had come back with the class had learned to speak, and now it was speaking through them, piece by piece, one file at a time. Part 9, Parent Night, with no names. It started with a parking lot full of headlights and confused faces. Parent night was supposed to be predictably Lockwood hellos. Stale coffee, smiling teachers, reassuring concerned moms that he's just shy. and the occasional dad pretending to understand the grading system. But this night, something felt hollow, like the air itself was waiting for something to go wrong. Mr. Law, our assistant principal, stood awkwardly by the entrance, greeting parents with a clipboard. I noticed something weird. He wasn't checking off any names, just flipping the pages again and again, scanning as if trying to find something that should be there but wasn't. The building buzzed with fluorescent lights, but they flickered every few seconds, not enough to be a power issue, just enough to make you second-guess your eyes. The first real sign something was off came from room 208, Mrs. Hansen's class. A woman in a dark blue cardigan stood stiff at the doorway. Her voice was trembling, even though she tried to smile. "Excuse me, but my son, Eli Dawson, he's in this class, right? 9th grade, biology." Mrs. Hansen looked at her like she'd just asked if unicorns were on the syllabus. "I don't believe I have an Eli Dawson." "Are you sure it's this school?" The woman pulled out a photo from her wallet. A school photo. Westfield High, printed clearly at the bottom. Eli in a checkered button-down, smiling awkwardly. "He missed this picture day," she whispered. "This was last year." Mrs. Hansen looked around, then motioned for her to wait. She walked out, leaving the mother staring at the empty classroom. I stood nearby with my mum, who was now busy faking interest in a chemistry syllabus. I couldn't stop watching the woman. Then another parent walked past us, confused, and another. "They say my daughter's not in their system," one muttered. "They think I'm in the wrong building," said another. "I've been coming here for 3 years." It escalated. 15, maybe 20 parents now wandered the halls. Some frustrated, some panicked, some whispering into phones and getting nothing but static. That was the next thing. No one could get a signal. "Not inside the school," Mrs. Hansen returned. Her face was pale. "He's not in the roster," she told the mother, not meeting her eyes. "He's not in any of our databases. Not in attendance, not in files. It's like he... She didn't finish. "But he came home from the museum trip," the mother said. "He left his backpack in his locker. He... Mrs. Hansen slowly shook her head. They opened locker 108. Inside, a backpack, covered in a faint layer of dust. Untouched, inside the front pocket, folded neatly, was a single note. "I remember you." The mother didn't cry. Not then. She just stood still, and then slowly backed away, walking down the hall like she didn't know where she was anymore. And here's the part that really got me. I remembered Eli. He sat in front of me in biology. Always doodled skulls on his folders. We traded gum. He once dared me to eat a cricket in science lab. But now, when I tried to picture his voice, I couldn't. When I searched my phone, every message thread was gone. When I checked the yearbook, his photo was smudged out. Not blurry, not torn, just ... Missing. My mom asked why I was shaking. "Do you remember Eli Dawson?" I asked. She looked at me with a tilted head. "Should I?" I didn't answer. Later that night, when most parents had left, one stayed behind. She walked from room to room, calling a name I didn't recognize. Her voice was soft, patient, like she truly believed her daughter was just in the next classroom. Over. Eventually, she sat in an empty desk, her hands folded neatly on top. Someone brought her coffee, but she didn't touch it. I peeked inside, hours later, and saw something scrawled on the whiteboard behind her. "They won't remember until they return what they took." No one claimed responsibility for that message. Teachers blamed students. Students blamed ghosts. The janitor said it wasn't there at 5 p.m., but it was written in a handwriting I recognized. Eli's single quotes is the same jagged E, the crooked Y. I haven't seen the woman since, but sometimes, during lunch, locker 108 creaks open, and inside, the note has changed now, it says. I remember all of you, and something is waiting for us to remember back. Part 10, one-way ticket back. The envelope didn't have a return address, just Ethan's name, handwritten in perfect cursive across the front, like something out of a wedding invitation or a forgotten letter from the 1960s. He thought it was junk mail until he opened it. Inside was a museum, ticket creased, unscanned, still bearing the timestamp from the day of the field trip. Attached was a note on aged yellowing paper, written in the same careful cursive. You didn't finish the tour. Ethan stared at it. The ticket felt colder than paper should, like it had just come out of a freezer. His fingers tingled. He almost laughed it off. Almost, because that was a month ago, and the school had moved on. Caleb, his best friend, was still ... missing. Officially listed as unaccounted for, but no one used that word anymore, not out loud. Most students just whispered about him like a ghost, or worse, avoided the subject completely. Ethan flipped the ticket over. On the back, scribbled in smaller, shakier ink, use it soon, or it uses you. At first, Ethan thought it was some twisted prank, maybe Tyler or one of the guys from the soccer team messing with him. But the handwriting didn't match, and none of them would go this far. Besides, who else remembered that he never actually scanned his ticket that day? Because of the bathroom, because of the last-minute call from the nurse, because when the group entered the exhibit wing, he was still by the vending machines. And when he returned, everyone was already inside, except Caleb, that night. Ethan left the ticket on his desk and went to bed. He woke up standing, not in his room, not in his house, but in the center of the museum lobby, surrounded by glass display cases and polished marble floors, bathed in the dim artificial light that always feels a little too yellow. His heart stumbled into a sprint. The air smelled of dust and lemon cleaner, familiar and yet wrong. Time moved thick here, like syrup. He reached into his pocket. The ticket was gone, but the floor beneath his shoes still had the faint outline of shoe prints, muddy ones leading toward the west wing. He didn't remember walking. He didn't remember dreaming. But here he was. A soft hum echoed through the empty halls, like distant electricity or a fan deep in the walls. Ethan walked slowly, his sneakers almost silent on the smooth floor. He passed the same exhibits from last time, only now something felt rearranged. The bones of the ancient bear in the glass case tilted slightly. The plaque that once read extinct, since the Ice Age, now simply read on break. And in the center rotunda, where the woolly mammoth used to stand, there was now only a rope cordon. A single sign. He stepped out. Ethan turned, heart pounding. There was movement just in the corner of his eye, a shape, almost human, standing too still, too symmetrical. It stepped into view. Caleb, same dark hoodie, same scuffed Vans, but something was off. The face was too smooth, too clean, and the smile, it stretched wide, but didn't touch the eyes. Caleb, or whatever wore his skin, didn't blink. You came back, it said. The voice was Caleb's. Almost. Ethan backed away, but the thing didn't move. It only pointed, slowly, toward the darkened hallway where the Egyptian artifacts used to be. Finish the tour. Ethan turned to run, But the museum had shifted. Doors that led to exits were now mirrors. Endless reflections of himself, each one looking more tired, more afraid. He ran past the planetarium. Its domed ceiling flickered, showing stars that didn't match any constellation he knew. One burned red. It pulsed like a heartbeat. He finally found the gift shop. It was closed, locked from the inside. Behind the glass, his own face stared back at him, older, hair damp, eyes too wide. The reflection mouthed something. Too late. Ethan stumbled into the museum theater. The projector flickered on its own. Footage played. It was their class. Walking through the exhibits, he saw himself, laughing, talking, except ... He hadn't been there. He never scanned in. He watched as Caleb turned toward the camera, just for a second. Then the tape looped, and in the loop, Caleb never turned back around, just stared right through the screen at him. Something behind him moved. A soft footstep, bare skin on tile. Ethan turned. No one there, but the air carried a whisper. "You still have the ticket." He looked down. It was in his hand again, icy, unused. He closed his eyes, took a breath. "What happens if I finish it?" He asked the empty room. Silence. Then a whisper at his ear. "Then you stay." Ethan opened his eyes. He was home, standing in his bedroom. The morning sun painted golden streaks across his carpet, but the ticket was still in his hand. And across his window, written in the condensation, "See you next time."
Hello everyone, I'm Ceoz Stories. Thank you for staying with me until the very last moment. If that story gave you chills, made you jump, or simply kept your eyes glued to the screen, don't hesitate to hit the like button to support the channel. Share this video with friends who enjoy these sensations too, and don't forget to leave a comment with your thoughts, or even share strange things you've personally experienced, because I'd love to immerse myself in your stories as well. If you're eager to keep exploring untold mysteries, shadows that remain nameless, then subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification bell. A new door will open every day. Are you ready for the next story?